Hey, my name's Ben Carter. I run a small bakery called Sweet Corner on the outskirts of Manchester. It's not one of those fancy artisan spots in the city centre with exposed brick walls and overpriced lattes. No, mine's more of a neighbourhood staple tucked away in a quiet retail park between a laundrette and a DIY store. I bake everything from scratch: croissants that flake just right, sourdough loaves with that perfect crust, and cinnamon rolls that people drive across town for at weekends. The shop's been in my family for generations. My grandpa started it, and after he passed, my dad kept it going until he retired. Now it's mine, and honestly, I love it. My days start early with kneading dough and end around closing time, wiping down counters and counting the till. I live in the tiny flat right above the shop. Nothing special, just a one-bedroom with creaky floors and a view of the car park, but it's home. The smell of fresh bread seeps up through the vents, and on quiet nights, I can hear the rain pattering on the roof, which is pretty much Manchester's soundtrack year-round. I never really thought much about dating or relationships. My life's too wrapped up in the bakery to chase after that sort of thing. Sure, I've had a few casual flings here and there, girls from the local university, or baristas from the coffee shop down the street. But nothing stuck. I'm not the type to swipe on apps or go to speed dating events. Who has time for that when you're elbow deep in flour? My mum, though, she's always on my case about it. She's got this idea that my brother Luke and I need to settle down, start families, keep the Carter line going strong. Luke's the older one, works in real estate in the city centre. He's the golden boy, always dressed sharp, drives a nice car, and somehow manages to charm everyone he meets. Me, I'm the quiet one. The guy with dough under my nails and a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. That's how I ended up in this mess. It was a rainy afternoon, the kind where the sky hangs low and grey, and everyone in Manchester seems to be hunkered down with a hot cuppa. I had just finished a big order for a local office, 24 muffins and a tray of danishes, and was about to close up early when my phone buzzed. It was Mum. "Ben, honey, I need a favour," she said, her voice all urgent. Turns out she'd set up this blind date for Luke with some woman she met through her book club. The lady's daughter, apparently, a lovely girl in her early 30s, successful from a good family. Mum was convinced this could be the one for Luke, but he came down with the flu, fever, chills, the works, and couldn't make it. "You have to go in his place," she pleaded. "Just sit there. Be polite. Explain the mix-up, please, Ben. For me." I groaned. The last thing I wanted was to play pretend on some awkward setup, but Mum has this way of guilting you without even trying. So I agreed. I threw on the first clean shirt I could find, which still had a faint streak of flour on the sleeve, grabbed a bouquet of daisies from the local shop on my way, and headed into town. The meeting spot was this cozy little patisserie called La Petite, right in the heart of the Northern Quarter. It's one of those places with mismatched chairs, chalkboard menus, and the faint hum of indie folk music in the background. Traffic was a nightmare, and by the time I pushed through the door, my shirt was rumpled and the daisies looked a bit wilted from the drizzle outside. I scanned the room and spotted her right away. She was sitting at a corner table by the window, nursing a cup of tea, her posture straight but relaxed. Clara Bennett, though I didn't know her name yet. She had long brown hair that fell in soft waves over her shoulders, sharp green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once, and this air of quiet confidence like she owned the room without trying. She was dressed simply, a light jumper over jeans, but it suited her perfectly. Not flashy, just real. I walked over feeling like a total imposter and cleared my throat. "Hi, are you Clara? I'm Ben, Luke's brother. He couldn't make it, got sick at the last minute. Mum sent me instead. I'm really sorry about the mix-up." She looked up, her expression unreadable for a second, then she arched an eyebrow and smiled faintly. Not the forced kind, but genuine with a hint of amusement. "Well, that's a first," she said, her voice warm and steady. "A stand-in date. I guess I should be flattered or offended." I laughed nervously and handed her the daisies. "Definitely flattered. These are for you. Peace offering." She took them, sniffing the petals lightly. "They're nice. Thanks. Sit down, Ben. Since you're here, we might as well chat." We ordered me a black coffee, her a refill on her chamomile tea, and I explained the whole thing. Mum's matchmaking obsession, Luke's flu, my reluctant role as the backup. She didn't seem annoyed. If anything, she found it funny. "Your mum sounds like mine," she said. "Always playing Cupid. But hey, at least you're honest about it." From there, the conversation flowed easier than I expected. She asked about my bakery, and when I mentioned Sweet Corner, her eyes lit up. "Wait, you're the guy who makes those killer croissants? I've heard about your place from a friend. Small world." I nodded, feeling a bit more at ease. We talked about baking, how I love the precision of laminating dough for croissants, the satisfaction of pulling a perfect batch from the oven. She shared stories about her own kitchen disasters, like the time she tried to make macarons and ended up with flat, chewy blobs. "Baking's not my thing," she admitted. "I'm more of a runner. Clears my head in the mornings, especially with Manchester's trails." We swapped laughs about quirky customers. She works in finance in the city centre and deals with high-flying clients all day, and even touched on our shared love for early morning routines in a city that's always damp. There was no pressure, no awkward flirting. It was just two people stuck in a weird situation making the best of it. By the time we finished our drinks, the rain had let up outside. As we stood to leave, she surprised me. "You know, I might stop by your shop sometime. I'd love to try those croissants fresh." I smiled. "Anytime, the door's always open." We said goodbye with a quick handshake, hers firm and warm, and I walked back to my car, thinking that maybe the afternoon hadn't been a total waste. Little did I know that wrong date was about to turn into something right. After that unexpected blind date, I didn't think much about Clara. Life at Sweet Corner picked right back up. Early mornings mixing dough, afternoons dealing with the lunch rush, evenings scrubbing ovens until my hands were raw. The weather was mild with those misty rains that make everything smell like fresh earth and blooming flowers along the streets. I figured she'd been polite about stopping by the way people are after an awkward encounter, and that would be the end of it. But not long after, one morning the bell above the door jingled, and there she was. Clara walked in wearing a tailored blazer over a white blouse, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, looking every bit the professional heading to some city center office. She scanned the display case with genuine interest, not the rushed glance most early birds give. "Morning, Ben," she said, smiling like we'd been regulars for years. "I'll take half a dozen croissants to go for the team at work. They're obsessed with carbs." I nodded, bagging them up while she browsed the muffins. "Glad you made it. Fresh out of the oven." She paid, chatted briefly about the weather, classic Manchester small talk, and left with a wave. Simple as that. Before long, she was back. This time, she ordered a coffee to stay, black with a splash of cream, and lingered at the counter while I restocked the shelves. "These look amazing," she said, pointing to a tray of blueberry scones. "What's your secret?" I wiped my hands on my apron and leaned in. Fresh berries from the farmer's market down the road and a bit of lemon zest cuts through the sweetness. She nodded, impressed, and before I knew it, we were talking about recipes. She admitted she'd tried baking once, a chocolate cake for a friend's birthday, but it came out lopsided and dense. "I followed the instructions to the letter," she laughed. "Guess I'm better with spreadsheets than batter." I chuckled. "Baking's more art than science. Sometimes you have to feel it out." From there, her visits became a routine. At first, it was quick stops, grabbing pastries for her colleagues or a loaf of sourdough to take home. But gradually, she stayed longer. She'd perch on one of the stools at the end of the counter, sipping her coffee while watching me work. I didn't mind. The shop was quiet mid-morning, and her company broke up the monotony. One day, she asked about my process for laminating dough. "How do you get those perfect layers in the croissants? Mine would probably end up like hockey pucks." I demonstrated a bit, folding a scrap piece of pastry on the counter. "It's all about the butter, cold but not too cold, and patience. Rush it, and it falls apart." She watched intently, asking questions that showed she was really listening, not just being polite. Clara was straightforward, which I appreciated. No games, no pretense. One morning, as I was pulling a batch of cinnamon rolls from the oven, she tilted her head and asked, "Don't you ever get bored of this? The same routine every day. Dough, bake, repeat." I paused, glazing the rolls with icing that dripped in slow, sweet ribbons. "If I did, I'd have switched jobs years ago," I said honestly. "But there's something satisfying about it. Seeing a lump of dough turn into something people enjoy and regulars come back and say it's the best they've had, that keeps it fresh. Plus, it's steady. In a world that's always changing, steady is not so bad. She nodded thoughtfully, stirring her coffee. I get that. My job's the opposite. Always shifting markets, deadlines, high-stakes deals. Steady sounds nice. As time passed, our conversations deepened without forcing it. She'd tease me about the shop's quirks. "Your flat must smell amazing," she said one morning, eyeing the stairs behind the counter. "Mine in the city center is just coffee and takeout containers." I grinned, playing along. "Yeah, but yours probably doesn't have mice chewing the wires every other month. Last time, I spent an hour rewiring the espresso machine." She laughed, a real full laugh that echoed in the empty shop and shot back. "Touché, but seriously, this place has character. It feels lived in." In Clara, I saw someone who didn't need to put on airs. At work, she was probably all business, crisp emails, boardroom presentations, but here she was, just Clara. Easygoing, quick with a joke, and surprisingly open. She'd share snippets of her life, long hours at the finance firm, weekend hikes in the local parks to unwind, or funny stories about botched client dinners where the steak was overcooked. I'd tell her about mine too. The quiet joys like sourcing local honey for glazes or experimenting with new flavors like lavender-infused shortbread that bombed with customers but I loved anyway. Or how I'd learned baking from my grandpa who used to hum old jazz tunes while rolling pie crusts. He always said, "Good bread doesn't lie, it's honest work." I shared one day. She smiled softly. "Sounds like a wise man. My grandpa was an accountant. Numbers all day. No wonder I ended up in finance." Those chats turned our meetings into something I looked forward to. A break from the flour-dusted grind. We weren't flirting exactly, just two people connecting over simple things. But bit by bit, from those casual jabs and shared laughs, we went from strangers to friends. And in a city like Manchester, where people come and go with the rain, that felt like something real. One day, as I was kneading a batch of rye dough behind the counter, the bell jingled. But it wasn't Clara. It was Luke striding in like he owned the place, his polished shoes clicking on the tile floor. He looked out of place in my cozy shop, suit jacket slung over his arm, phone in hand, probably fresh from some client meeting in town. "Ben," he said, leaning on the counter with that big brother smirk. "We need to talk." I wiped my hands on a towel, sensing the lecture coming. "What's up? You here for a free muffin?" He glanced around, making sure no customers were eavesdropping, then lowered his voice. "It's about Clara. Mum's been filling me in. She says you've been seeing her a lot at the shop." I raised an eyebrow. "Seeing her? She's a regular customer now. Comes in for croissants. We chat. That's it." Luke shook his head like I was missing the point. "Come on, man. You know who she is. Successful. Lives in that fancy penthouse. Circles Mum runs in. This isn't just coffee talk. Don't get too friendly. She's not the type for whatever this is." He waved a hand at the flour-dusted counters. "She's a catch, Ben. The kind that could change things for you. But if you're just playing buddy-buddy, back off. Let me handle it once I'm better." I felt a flicker of annoyance, but I kept it cool. "Handle it, Luke? She's not some opportunity or catch. She's a friend. And last I checked, friends don't need your approval." He sighed, straightening up. "Just saying, don't mess this up for the family. Mum had high hopes." With that, he grabbed a Danish to go and left, leaving me staring at the door. His words stuck with me the rest of the day, implying Clara was some ticket to a better life, like my bakery wasn't enough. It made me question if there was truth to it. Was I out of my depth? But when I thought about our talks, the easy laughs over coffee, it didn't feel like that. It felt real. Later that evening, as I was closing up, flipping the sign to closed and sweeping crumbs, my phone buzzed. It was Clara. "Up for exploring Manchester's night scene. Meet me at 7. Pizza's on me." I hesitated for a second, Luke's warning echoing, but then texted back, "Sounds good. Where?" She picked a casual spot in the Ancoats area, a hole-in-the-wall pizzeria with outdoor seating under string lights. The kind where locals gather for wood-fired pies and craft beer. I showed up in my usual jeans and checked shirt, still smelling faintly of yeast. Clara was already there, waving from a corner table, looking relaxed in a hoodie and trainers, far from the polished professional I'd first met. We ordered a margarita pizza to share, steam rising from the thin crust as we dug in. The air was cool with that post-rain freshness Manchester evenings often have, and the street buzzed with cyclists and dog walkers. "Rough day?" she asked, noticing my quiet mood. I shrugged, taking a sip of my pint. "Family stuff," brother dropping wisdom I didn't ask for. She nodded knowingly. "Siblings? Mine's the same. Always thinks she knows best." From there, the conversation meandered. She talked about a deal at work that fell through, laughing it off like a bad joke. Lost a client because their CEO hated my presentation font. Can you believe it? Millions on the line over Helvetica. Why, I'm rit. I cracked up, sharing my own flop. A batch of eclairs that deflated because I skimped on the eggs. "Baking disasters are humbling," I said. "One wrong measure and it's trash." After pizza, she suggested a detour to a nearby supermarket. "Dessert," she declared, grabbing a trolley. We wandered the aisles like kids, picking out tubs of ice cream. Vanilla for her, chocolate for me, along with sprinkles and whipped cream for good measure. "Let's make sundaes," she said, eyes sparkling. We headed back to Sweet Corner, where I unlocked the door and flipped on the kitchen lights. The shop was dim and peaceful at night, just the hum of the fridge and the faint scent of sugar lingering. We set up at the counter, scooping ice cream into bowls, drizzling caramel I'd made earlier that day. She fought me for the last spoonful of chocolate, laughing when she won. "Victory tastes sweet," she teased. As we ate, the mood shifted to something deeper. She opened up about her life in the city center. The long hours, the pressure to climb the ladder, the emptiness of coming home to a silent penthouse. "It's nice, but sometimes it feels like a hotel room," she admitted. "No warmth." I nodded, licking my spoon. "That's why I like this place. It's messy, lived in, feels like home." When it was time to go, she paused at the door, turning to me with a thoughtful look. "Ben, if you weren't a baker, what would you do?" I leaned against the frame, considering. "Probably still bake. It's who I am." Sometimes I think we don't need to change to fit someone else's idea of success. Just do what we're good at, what makes us happy. She met my eyes, her expression soft. "You're lucky. You know what you want. Me, I get caught up in expectations. Work, family, all of it." That night, as I locked up and headed upstairs, I realized our friendship had crossed a line. It wasn't just casual anymore. We were sharing pieces of ourselves, the real stuff. And for the first time, I wondered if there could be more. As time went on, Clara's presence in my life became as reliable as the Manchester drizzle. Her visits became more frequent. She'd pop in for a late afternoon coffee or swing by when the shop was bustling with families, picking up pies for Sunday dinners. Our conversations had evolved too, from light banter about recipes to quieter moments where we'd share the weight of our days. But not everyone saw it that way. Word got around, as it does in a city that's big, but feels small in circles like ours. Clara's friends, the ones from her city center world, sharp-suited executives and socialites, started whispering. I'd overhear snippets when she'd take calls at the counter, her voice dropping low. "Yes, the baker. No, it's not like that. Or maybe it is. Why does it matter?" One evening after closing, she confessed over leftover scones that a close colleague had pulled her aside at work. She asked if I was serious about hanging out with that guy from the suburbs, like you're some hobby I'm slumming it with. Clara rolled her eyes, but I could see it stung a little. I shrugged it off at first. "People talk. Let them. As long as you're happy here, that's what counts." And she was, or at least she seemed to be. She'd laugh off the comments, saying things like, "They don't get it. My penthouse has a killer view, but it doesn't come with fresh-baked bread at dawn." But deep down, I knew the gap between our worlds was real. She lived in a high-rise with concierge service and skyline vistas. I had a leaky tap and a view of the bins out back. Luke's words from that day in the shop lingered too, making me wonder if I was holding her back. Still, I didn't push. Clara wasn't the type to be swayed by gossip. She was strong-willed, the kind of woman who'd built her career from scratch after putting herself through business school on scholarships and night shifts. Then came the day it all bubbled up. It was one afternoon. Clara texted during her lunch break. "Can I come by?" She arrived with takeout burritos from a local food truck, and we ate at the back table away from the counter rush. Halfway through, she set her food down and looked at me seriously. "Ben, hypothetically, if people thought I was crazy for ditching my penthouse life to hang out in a bakery with you, what would you say?" Her tone was light, but her eyes searched mine. I wiped my mouth with a napkin, buying a second to think. "I'd say they're missing the point, but honestly, I'd just bake twice as good to make it worth your while. The important thing is if you're happy, not what they think." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're too good at this, you know that?" One weekend, things shifted. Clara showed up earlier than usual carrying a bag of groceries. "Teach me to bake," she declared, plopping the bag on the counter. "Not just watch, actually do it. I want to make something for your mum, as a thank you for the mix-up that started all this." I raised an eyebrow, but agreed. The shop was closed for the day, my one day off, and we had the kitchen to ourselves. I picked a simple recipe: apple turnovers, easy enough for a beginner, but impressive when done right. We tied on aprons, mine worn and stained, hers borrowed from the rack, and got to work. I showed her how to peel and slice the apples, mixing in cinnamon and sugar until the filling bubbled sweetly on the stove. "Now the dough," I said, guiding her hands as she rolled it out. She was clumsy at first, flour puffing up like snow, and when she cracked an egg too hard, yolk splattered everywhere. "Oops," she giggled, wiping a streak from her cheek. I laughed too, grabbing a towel to help clean up, our hands brushing in the process. We jostled for space at the counter, elbows bumping as she folded the dough over the filling, crimping the edges with a fork. Bits of apple escaped, and flour dusted the floor like confetti. At one point, she dropped a whole spoonful of filling, and we both knelt down to scoop it up, heads nearly colliding, bursting into fits of laughter that echoed off the stainless steel ovens. It was messy, chaotic, and fun. Nothing like the polished life she described in the city center. As we waited for the turnovers to bake, the kitchen filling with that warm, spiced aroma, we sat on stools, catching our breath. Clara turned to me, her face flushed from the heat and exertion. "Ben, I love this simple, hands-on stuff. It's what I've been missing." She paused, fiddling with a stray bit of dough. "What if I moved in here above the shop? Ditched the penthouse for good? I'm tired of the glamour. It's lonely up there." I froze, fork midway to my mouth from tasting a scrap. "You serious?" She nodded, eyes steady. "Dead serious, but only if you're okay with it. I know it's a big step, trading skyline views for bakery mornings." I set the fork down, my heart pounding a little. It hit me then. This wasn't just about convenience or fun. Clara was choosing something real, defying the expectations piled on her. The high-powered job, the upscale life, the right kind of partner. Not everyone has the guts to walk away from that for something simpler. If having someone to bake with, share breakfasts, and laugh over spilled flour sounds good to you, I said softly, then yeah, more than okay. She beamed, leaning in to hug me, flour transferring from her apron to my shirt. That afternoon, as the turnovers cooled on the rack, golden and flaky, we started planning. She moved in gradually over the following weeks, boxes of clothes and books arriving bit by bit. Our life wasn't luxurious. Noisy mornings with delivery vans, late nights troubleshooting the ancient oven, power flickers during storms that left us scrambling for candles. But it was ours, filled with fresh-baked scents, shared meals, and quiet evenings on the small balcony, watching the rain streak the windows while we talked about nothing and everything. Time passed. Sweet Corner had never been busier. Word spread about our new specials, Clara's ideas, like the hazelnut lattes inspired by her hikes in the hills, or the vegan muffins she pushed me to try after reading about sustainable baking online. Customers came from farther out, drawn by the buzz on local food blogs or Instagram posts from satisfied regulars. The shop felt alive in a new way, with the bell jingling more often and the display case emptying faster. On the counter, there were always 2 aprons hanging side by side. My old flour-crusted one and hers. A crisp blue one I'd bought as a housewarming gift when she officially moved in. She'd tie it on during her off hours, helping with the rush or experimenting with glazes when the kitchen was quiet. One morning, Mum stopped by unannounced, her coat dotted with raindrops from the short walk from her car. She eyed the bustling counter, then spotted Clara arranging a tray of eclairs. "Well, look at this," she said, her voice warm with surprise. "The place is hopping. And you, Clara, you're a natural here." Clara smiled, wiping her hands before offering a hug. "Mrs. Carter, try one of these fresh batch." Mum took a bite, her eyes widening. "Delicious! Ben, you didn't tell me she bakes too." I laughed from behind the espresso machine. She's full of surprises. As Mum sat with her coffee, chatting about neighborhood gossip, she leaned in and whispered to me, "That blind date mix-up. Best mistake ever. She's a keeper." It was her way of giving her blessing. No fanfare, just quiet approval. Luke had come around too eventually, grumbling at first, but now he'd stop by for free pastries and admit, "You two make it work somehow." We didn't make grand promises about wealth or adventure. There were no lavish holidays or diamond rings exchanged under fireworks. Our days were grounded. Clara balancing her finance job with remote work from the flat upstairs. Me handling the bakery's chaos below. She didn't quit her career. She loved the challenge, but she scaled back, delegating more to her team so she could be home by dinner. Mornings, she'd help log orders in the ledger, her precise handwriting a stark contrast to my scribbles. Afternoons, she'd sneak post-it notes into the fridge. "You're the yeast to my dough, keep rising," or "Proud of you, baker boy." I'd find them during breaks, smiling as I prepped the next batch. Evenings were ours. I'd cook simple dinners, pasta with fresh herbs from the tiny window garden we'd started, or grilled cheese with tomatoes from the farmer's market. She'd insist on washing up, suds flying as we bantered about the day's mishaps, a burnt tray of cookies or her dealing with a stubborn client over Zoom. Afterwards, we'd bundle up against the chill and walk the quiet streets of our suburb, hand in hand, dodging puddles under street lamps. Manchester's nights were magical like that. Fog rolling in from the river, the distant hum of the city fading into peace. We'd talk about everything, her dreams of starting a small investment fund for local businesses, my ideas for expanding the shop with a food van someday, or nothing at all. Just comfortable silence broken by the occasional laugh at a quirky garden decoration. Not everyone understood. A few of Clara's old friends drifted away, puzzled by her change. One even asked her outright at a rare girls' night out, "Don't you miss the penthouse, the views, the space?" Clara told me about it later over tea on the balcony. I just smiled and said, "Up there, no one bakes raisin scones like my husband does." She paused, then added softly, "And I meant it. That life was shiny but empty. Here, it's full." We weren't married yet, not officially, but the words slipped out naturally now, a quiet acknowledgement of what we'd built. No rush for a ring. It felt right as is. Looking back, I realized we'd never dwelt on heartbreaks or regrets. Clara had her share, ambitious climbs that left her isolated, relationships that fizzled under pressure. Me, a few failed dates, the grind of keeping the family business afloat after Dad stepped back. But we didn't unpack those like baggage, we just moved forward layer by layer like folding pastry dough. Happiness, it turned out, didn't need drama or grand gestures. It was in the small things, her hand in mine during walks, the way she'd hum while frosting cupcakes. The shared exhaustion after a long day that ended with us collapsing on the sofa, watching old films until we dozed off. In the end, I saw it clear as a perfectly risen loaf. Sometimes life needs a wrong turn to find the right path. That blind date detour led me to Clara and her to me. We dared to ignore the molds, the upscale expectations, the suburban simplicity, and chose what felt true. No complications, just two people living authentically side by side. And that was enough for me, for Clara, for the little bakery on the corner that stayed lit late into the night, its windows glowing warm against the rain. In the quiet corners of Manchester, where the rain whispers against bakery windows and the scent of fresh bread lingers like a promise, this story reminds us of something profoundly moving. Sometimes the wrong path is the one that leads us straight to where we truly belong. Ben thought he was simply doing his mum a favor, stepping in for his brother on a blind date he never wanted. Yet that single awkward afternoon, with wilted daisies and nervous laughter, unfolded into a love that defied every expectation. Clara, with her high-rise world of deadlines and skyline views, chose instead the simple warmth of flour-dusted hands, shared sundaes at midnight, and the honest rhythm of a life built side by side. It's a gentle yet powerful lesson that true happiness rarely arrives wrapped in perfection or prestige. It hides in the messy, everyday moments, laughter over spilled filling, post-it notes on the fridge, and quiet walks through puddles under street lamps. We chase success, titles, and approval so fiercely, but this tale whispers that the richest treasures are found when we dare to ignore the noise, follow our hearts, and embrace what feels like home, even if it looks nothing like the life others planned for us. It leaves you with a lump in your throat and a quiet hope that your own unexpected turn might just be the beginning of something beautiful. If this story touched you the way it touched me, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's the best wrong turn that ever led you right? Drop your own heartfelt story in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you're craving more real-life tales that warm the soul and stir the spirit, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's keep sharing these moments of quiet magic together. Your support means the world. Thank you for being here.